Good afternoon to all of you. When we talk about the power of service, one of the things which I learned, the giver has to kneel down and seek thanks, and the receiver has to stand up and permit. I learned this lesson long ago before I read this incredible quote from Swami Vivekananda. It was the spring of 2011. I was well entrenched in my global corporate career with a good salary and a comfortable life. And it seemed that charity was the next best thing to do. So I searched for a few non-profits in the city of Gurgaon, and I managed to narrow down on this one orphanage which was being run in the old part of the city. I spoke to the lady who was running the place, and she asked me to come over and have a look. So I went there, and I found that she had been running this place for over 2 decades. She was a lady in her 60s, and there were many children whom she was taking care of and sending them for education to various private and charitable schools in the city. She talked about this one boy who was studying in a really high-end private school in Gurgaon. She said he is really bright, and I have a struggle of paying his quarterly fees. And the next installment is due in a couple of weeks' time. Can you help me? I was very happy, and I said, sure, I'll support this child. So I came home and I wrote the check. And before I was going to put it into the envelope, the corporate being in me took over. And I designed a whole checklist of how I should support her. I made a process, I put some data points, I thought there should be a review, there should be a plan, and along with that checklist, I gave it to my driver to drop it off at a place. I was traveling the next day. So when I reached my destination and I looked at my phone, there were a lot of missed calls from this lady. And I thought that she must have got the check and must be very happy to have received it. So I called her back, expecting a lot of thank yous and a lot of good words for what I had done. But she was absolutely livid. The conversation went for a few minutes, in which I think I could say just a couple of words. She was almost screaming at me. I could actually keep the phone 10 meters away and listen to what she was saying. She was very, very upset. And she said that this is not the way you give.
Please put this on because the audio is not very clear.
Okay.
So this left side. Yeah, maybe put this on. You're good to go.
So she was, oh, it's a very different volume now. She was extremely livid, and she said that this is not the way you give. I don't know what all these documents are, why you need so many data points, and she said that she could not trust me, and that's why she would not take the money. It was very, very surprising for me, and it was equally shocking that she so desperately needed the money, but she was not willing to take it. I was very shaken, and then I got upset, and then I got angry, and then I felt the most obvious thing, that if it is not you, then I'll give it to someone else. And even before I had exited the airport, I had fixed up time with another orphanage for the coming weekend. So the next weekend I go to this orphanage. This is run for men and boys who are physically and mentally challenged. I have a long chat with the priest who runs the place. He asks me a lot of questions. I patiently answer all of them. And in the end, he tells me that I'll get back to you on how you could support me. I was like, I have my checkbook with me and I can write a check right away for you. And then he said, no, no, let me think and I'll get back. So that day when I was driving home, I felt that how hard it is to give. Why does not somebody take the money from me when I want to give? I only knew that selling was really hard, but now it seemed that giving was even harder. And so, as you must have guessed, he never called back, and I lost my interest and went about my regular life. Many months passed, and soon it was winter. I was dropping my children off to school, and if you were with me in the bitter cold winter morning, you would have seen two children who were walking barefoot, no shoes, no caps, no socks, in the bitter cold, and I could see that they were going to a school. You also would have seen my own children, my two kids. They were having the best winter wear, and I was feeling that whether this is good enough. The contrast could not have been starker, and I was greatly disturbed by what I saw in that moment. Disconcerted, I went to this school, which I found was running in a temple near my home. And I found that it was not just these 2, 3 kids. There were over 250 children, and all of them didn't have the bare minimum necessities in this bitter cold weather. So I asked to see the principal because I felt I could help these kids. She was also a woman in her 60s who was the principal, and I was feeling very nervous speaking to her. But I came to know that she had just been back from her dentist with a tooth extraction, so it was quite obvious that she would not be able to speak today. But I put up the request, and she waved her hand, and the assistant told me that, yes, you can give and you can go ahead with this. So I donated shoes, caps, socks to all these 250 kids in this school. And in doing so, I experienced an amazing sense of fulfillment. I was full of joy. I felt ecstatic. And this was something which I had never ever experienced before in my life. And at that moment, I realized that this donation which I had done was one human's response to another human's suffering. And I moved from a point where I was giving from privilege to actually feel privileged in giving. And that's how I learned this lesson. Over the next few months, I worked with many other non-profits in the city, helping them with time, helping them with money, helping them with my skills. And I was back at the school after a year to give a fresh pair of shoes to these children. And then I discovered that there was a big problem which was absolutely unseen. I found that there was this boy who was studying in grade 5, but he looked 15 years old. I had a chat with him, and I came to know that he had been studying in grade 5 in this school for the last 6 years. So I found that the reason why he was doing so because the school was up to grade 5, and he had tried to go to a private school, EWS. He had tried to go to the government school, but he did not find any opportunity or any future for himself. And that's why he was studying here. And it was not only him. There were many children who were studying at grades far lower than their age. It was very, very disturbing to see these children languishing in the education system only to become economically viable. The day they become economically viable, the best case would be a life of an auto rickshaw driver or working as a maid. And then these uneducated boys and girls would marry, typically at a very early age, and then become fathers and mothers of children who again cannot support their children for age-appropriate education, tutor them or guide them, and they remain in this vicious cycle of poverty. I was very disturbed, and when I looked at the statistics, I found that this was not a problem just of Gurgaon, but it was all across the country. There are around 60 million children studying at grades far lower than their age, and at least 3 times the population of Delhi who are out of school. So I used to feel that what can I do for this? But the thought kept tormenting me, and then I felt that at least I can do something for these kids who are there right in front of me. And I started a fast track program in which a 14 to 15-year-old would get to complete their grade 10th, 12th, acquire a vocational skill, be able to speak fluently in English and another language, be digitally literate, and at least by the time they are 19, 20, they can enter a job through education. That is how I started a one-room school with 6 students from my personal savings and also with a personal loan. It was very difficult to get teachers to teach in a fast-track manner. And after a lot of search, one man agreed. He was a maths teacher. And soon many other teachers came. Over a period of time, many others started associating with this cause and started helping. Soon the number of children started increasing. And by 2016, we had over 300 children who were studying in the various programs. That is when I decided to quit my corporate job and focus full time in this and dedicated my life to the cause of serving the underprivileged child. Next. So one of the children who got benefited from this was Gudiya. Back in 2011, when I first donated shoes, caps, socks, she was one of the recipients. And then in 2018, I discovered that she was part of her fast track program. Today, as we speak, she is working in a US multinational company doing software testing. Without the intervention, she probably would be doing what her parents are doing. Her father cleans cars in people's homes, and her mother does dishes. But Gudiya today is able to earn a salary which is twice the per capita income of our nation, and she is contributing towards nation building. Over the last 10 years, there have been many success stories like those of Gudiya. But the journey, of course, is not always very sweet, and one has moments when you feel sad, you feel disappointed, you are upset, and in those moments, I try to connect to stories and experiences of children like Gudiya, my time spent with them, and all the things which we have done together. And whenever I connect to that, I feel that I'm filled with joy, and all the other emotions simply dissolve away. And I have wondered that why does this happen? Why do I feel like this? I have come to realize that this is the power of service. When you give, the joy of giving which you experience, and when you give with gratitude and you give selflessly, you really connect with the very core of your existence. You connect with the absolute which exists in all of us, and we feel the oneness, and it is through that we experience this joy. The power of service will help you and helps us to achieve Tattvam Asi, thou art that. And that is what I have learned in this journey, and I want to share with you, my friends, that you have education. Education will give you a very beautiful life. Try to share some of it with others so that they too can have a beautiful life. And by experiencing the joy of giving, you will definitely experience Tattvam Asi, thou art that. Thank you.